Welcome to the Laptop Pound Perfect Team Tutorials. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be watching from this wonderful world of ours. Welcome to another Laptop Pound tutorial. That is right. Cheers. We are here to help out some of the new players that are just coming into the game. Out of the Park Baseball 25, currently, as I'm recording this, has an 80% off sale. So you can get the game for $9.99 American on Steam or on FastSpring. Just go to ootpdevelopments.com to find out more information. That's ootpdevelopments.com. All right. One thing that I like to do is help out those people that are just coming into the game, starting up for the first time. Maybe they played the base game for a while or years ago and are now kind of interested in the perfect team aspect of the game. Well, if that is you, then I think this video might be extremely helpful for you. I have a lot of videos on my YouTube channel, over 500. Most of them have to do with OOTP, all the way from OOTP 21 up to the current version. And I also live stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/laptoppound, usually Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays in the early afternoon. So you might want to check those out. Feel free to drop by, say hi, join the wonderful community over there on Twitch, and ask any questions that you might have. And if you do find this video helpful, please leave a like, leave a comment, and let me know if you have some success with some of the tips that I'm about to tell you. Okay, let's get right into it. OOTP is a game that has been around since the early 2000s. 1999, I think, was the first version. And for 19 versions, it was pretty much just the base game. You get to play baseball, historical games, current games. You can edit rosters. You can create players. And then back in OOTP 19, they created a second tier to their game called Perfect Team, which introduces a baseball card aspect, a card collecting aspect to the game. And that's what we're going to go through today. So you've just bought the game. You've loaded it up. You're ready to go. Where do I start, Lap? What do I do first? Help me, please help me. Well, I recommend that before you get too overwhelmed with all the choices that you have, you do two things. One, you go into the show tournament section, you click on the perfect drafts, and you go through and you're allowed to sign up for any 3 at any one time. So you can only sign up for 3. I recommend they're free. You don't have to, it doesn't cost you anything. So you might as well go use up your 3 perfect draft slots and then go through and just draft some players. Make sure you have 2 catchers and 2 first basemen and all those other kind of things. You can see my draft videos in my OOTP tutorials on the channel. If you go to playlists, click on tutorials, there'll be a few of the draft episodes. So go check those out. Those will help you get kind of climatized to what perfect drafts are all about. Why I'm recommending those is because you don't need to own any of those cards in your collection. You get some random cards to choose from, you put together a roster, and you compete against 16, 32, 64, 128 teams, and you try to win some prizes. So again, go check out my tutorials on drafting and enter 3 of those. That's a good way to get started. The second way that I recommend that you start in Perfect Team is you go to traditional tournaments. And this is a type of tournament where you do need to own the cards that you're going to put on your roster. So when you start up your Perfect Team, you open up packs and you get 6 cards in every pack, everything from an iron card all the way up to a perfect card. Typically, the higher rating the card is, the better that card will play on your team. Not always, but that's the general rule of thumb. The second thing is that when you open packs of cards, you can also sell the cards to get what the in-game currency is called perfect points. And with those perfect points, you can buy other cards on the card shop for your team, or you can buy packs and you can open up some more packs of cards. And again, all of that is explained. I have a series in my tutorial section called OOTP for Dummies, Perfect Team 25. So I recommend that you go and check those videos out because I show you right from the very beginning, starting up a team, registering a team, opening up your free packs that you get, and how you can kind of get started with your league play. Don't want to go through that in this video. I want to try and keep it relatively short. I want to focus on kind of the traditional tournaments that you should get involved in as soon as you start playing Perfect Team, because it does a couple things. It helps you learn the game a little bit better and which cards are performing better. And it also earns you either packs or perfect points. Typically, it earns you some packs. Now, in traditional tournaments, there are three basically different types of rewards that you can get. You can get standard packs all the way up to 75, as you see in this silver tournament. It says 75 standard pack rewards. So if you come first, you will automatically be distributed 75 of these standard packs to open up. That's a lot of cards to collect. The other type of tournament you can enter, as you see with this iron tournament, is a tournament batch 1 to 4. Depending on how you do, if you finish first, you're going to get a high diamond quality card as a reward. However, even if you just win one round, you're going to get 2 standard packs and everything else in between. And then the third type of tournament you can enter is this one here, which has 5 historical diamond packs as a reward. You can see the picture here. If you win, you get 5 of these, and you're guaranteed to get a diamond historical card, which again, typically are much better than the iron, the gold, the bronze cards. If you finish second, you'll get 3 of these packs, all the way down to winning one round, where you're going to get 2 standard packs. So those are kind of the 3 major prize pools for the daily tournaments that fire off once per day. Or if you go into a weekly, scroll down, you'll see all the weekly tournaments. There are more managers in these tournaments, typically 128, but the prizes are even better. If you win the tournament, you will get 2 perfect choice packs, which have kind of the premium cards in the game. So again, depending on how risky you want to be, you can enter tournaments with 128 people. For bigger prizes, you can enter the dailies. You'll see them right here, all the dailies with 64 people. And you can even enter what are called quick tournaments at the very top. These are tournaments that have less managers part of them. The prizes are not as good. You can earn some perfect points. You can earn some packs, up to 6 packs in a lot of these tournaments. Those are ones that fire off as soon as they fill. You don't have to wait for a certain time of day. For example, the dailies have a scheduled start time. Even when you enter it, you got to wait until that clock runs down to 0 before it will start. Same with the weeklies. They start once per week when the clock runs down to 0, as long as they're full. The dailies, however, as soon as they hit the maximum, 16 people, 64 people. For instance, if I enter this one, it's got 15 out of 16. As soon as I sign up, it'll start the clock, and within 15, 20 minutes, the first game will fire off. As a new player, what I would recommend that you do in these traditional tournaments, you'll see at the top here, the maximum amount of tournaments that you can enter at any one time. I already mentioned that for the perfect drafts, you can enter 3 regular perfect drafts. And for the traditional tournaments, you get different maximums on that. You're allowed to enter 2 quicks. So you can enter 2 of these ones that fire off fairly soon. You can enter 4 dailies and weeklies combined. So 2 dailies, 2 weeklies, 1 daily, 3 weeklies, up to 4. And there are the odd ones that have entry fees. You'll notice here, we see some that say EF. That means you have to pay up. You have to register with 2 or 1,000 perfect points in this case. So it's an entry fee to be part of this tournament. And again, if you win the tournament, you will get perfect points back. 12,000 perfect points for first, 4,000 perfect points for second. 16 teams in each of these. I recommend that you start with the dailies. I think that's a good place for beginners to start. And which one should you choose? Because there are lots of dailies here. Well, what I focus on and what I would recommend is that you choose one of the lower levels of cards. One, there's a good chance you own a lot of them with the packs that you open. And two, if you need to buy a few on the card shop, they're usually relatively inexpensive. So it's kind of a low starting point to get in. So I recommend you get into the iron, the bronze, or maybe even the silver. And then once you've kind of had some success at these levels, then maybe work your way up into gold or diamond or any of the other tournaments that kind of spark your interest. We're going to focus on the bronze ones. As a new player, there are two, maybe three bronze tournaments I highly recommend. The first one is you go to bronze or lower. That'll filter out only bronze tournaments. Again, you can enter 2 quicks and you can enter up to 4 dailies. One thing you need to consider is something new introduced to the game this year called combinator cards. Now, combinator cards are juiced cards, they're boosted cards. They're the exact same player. However, their ratings are giving a bump up to 5 different levels. As a new player, it's very tough to compete against the teams that have a lot of combinator cards because you're already at a huge disadvantage. So, what I recommend as a new player playing bronze, look for the tournaments that have 0 combinators. So I can go to, it's one of these here. Let's go to, has a combinator cap. So you go to cap filters, has combinator cap. That's going to narrow it down to the tournaments that as a beginner, you kind of have a better chance at succeeding in. Even then, you might want to narrow it down. So here we see about 8 or 9 tournaments. We have the entry fee ones, those cost you perfect points. Maybe avoid those at the beginning. And then you'll see here, we have the different amount of combi limits. This one, you're allowed 6 combinators. This one, you'll click on it. It says that you're allowed 13 combinators. This one here, you're allowed no combinators. And you can check out each of the ones, the dailies show you as well. This one, you are allowed, where does it say here? You're allowed 13 combinators. And even the one at the bottom here, no combinator cards. So I recommend you look for a tournament that has 0 combinators. Maybe at the outside chance 6. But to start with, look at those 0 ones. And there's 2 that jump out at me that you should be trying out. That's this one right here, the Q Bronze MIN Best of 3 T16, and they fire off right after each other. So when one fills up, the next one's ready to go. It fills up, the next one's ready to go. So you're never going to have to wait more than maybe 15, 20, 30 minutes for one of these to fill up. And I'm already in one. So let's hop over to that one, and I'll kind of show you why I recommend that you get involved in this one. The biggest reason is you don't have to have any of those specialty cards, those combinator cards. Now, this is a tournament where you can win 4 packs if you finish first. And if you finish second, you get 1 standard pack. So again, it's kind of your basic entry level kind of tournament, but it's one that you can, start to have some success in and feel a little better about how you're playing the game before maybe you attempt some of the higher level advanced tournaments. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through my bronze roster. These are the bronze cards that I have had success with. I updated them a couple days ago. So as of about December 25th, this is my meta. And by meta, I mean my optimal bronze team without any combinators in. So what you're going to do is you're going to put together 11 or 12 pitchers. Some people will use 11 pitchers for this tournament. Some will use 12. And you're going to have your 5 starters, and then you're going to have the rest of the players in the bullpen. What a lot of the veteran managers will do, just based on how the game works, they will assign middle relief roles to pretty much everyone in their bullpen, except maybe one pitcher that they use as long relief. Now you can go in and you can set up a closer role, you can set up a stopper role, set up all those kind of things. But again, as a new player, I recommend that you just keep it pretty vanilla, pretty straightforward, and go through and set them all to middle. Here are the pitchers that I am using. Number one is a card you're not going to be able to get because there is only one version. They did this as kind of a meme, kind of a fun little thing where the name of the player is the only Nolan. That was his, look it up. Go to Baseball Reference, look it up, you'll see that. So what they decided to do is put out a single card. Someone else pulled it. I put out a buy order on it on the card shop right here, and it was filled fairly quickly. So I paid up quite a bit. I paid up 300,000 perfect points, but that's because I love playing bronze, and he's a one-of-a-kind card. This is a card you're not going to be able to use, but I'm going to show you the other pitchers that are going to do just as good a job as this guy here. So the next guy that I recommend that you look for in the card shop is Scott Baker. Now, there's two ways that you can find the players on the card shop. You click on the player on anyone's roster, and you go to Actions, Find in Card Shop on the right-hand side. It's going to bring up that specific player, and if you go click on New Buy Order, it'll show you how many people are selling that card for the price that they're selling it at, and how many people want to buy that card. This is only 128 perfect points. Hopefully, by the time you're watching this video, you have accumulated some perfect points. This is a must buy. Go in, and all you need to do is click Buy Now. If you click Buy Now, it's going to tell you how much you're buying it for. Click Yes, and that player will automatically be part of your collection. So go get Scott Baker. And why should you get Scott Baker? Because he has the pitching profile that you want in a starter in bronze. This is what you're looking for. Number one, high HRA. This is the ability to prevent hitters from hitting home runs. The higher this number is, the less chance that the batter on the opposing team is going to hit a home run. And the way the game currently works, the game gives up a lot of home runs in the modern era of baseball. Scott Baker is good at preventing home runs. The second characteristic that's the most important, in my opinion, is control. Now, as you see here, it says control is the ability to limit walks. You know in real baseball how dangerous walks are. A walk can lead to a stolen base and a double later, and that walk has scored. How many times have teams walked in a winning run or have walked a player which has led to the go-ahead run? It happens a lot. So you want to have a starting pitcher that is going to limit the amount of walks that he gives up. So those are the two most important characteristics, is limiting home runs and limiting walks. And again, Scott Baker has that profile. So what you're looking for in the other pitchers that you select are similar profiles to Scott Baker. Ignore the pitches. He has 6 different pitches, which is awesome. But don't really focus on, how good their fastball is, how good their changeup is. That's kind of more of a visual, aesthetic kind of thing, not overly important. The more important part of the card is the top part here. So look for home run suppression, control, and the third thing then would be stuff. You want to have a bronze pitcher whose stuff is, probably over 40, over 50. Ignore movement, because movement is just a combination of home run suppression and ability to limit contact on balls in play. So this movement is just an amalgamation of these two characteristics. Ignore movement. HRA, control, and stuff for your pitchers. So go get yourself a Scott Baker. We're not going to spend as much time on each of the other players. I'll just show you them. The next guy that you want to keep an eye out for is Jimmy Key. Notice home run suppression, control really high, stuff over 50 or 60. Ignore the pitches and pretty much ignore everything else. Again, what you're focusing on, 90% of your evaluation of who you're using is going to be on this set of information right here. If you want a Jimmy Key, again, you simply click on Find in Card Shop, go to Buy Order, and currently none are for sale. No one is selling a Jimmy Key. Now, this is a unique card because this is a card you would get in a tournament batch set. That's why I recommended when you go to the perfect drafts, maybe enter the ones that say TB 1 to 4, because that's where you can win a chance on getting one of those Jimmy Key cards. Or a different card which you can sell, which then you can buy the Jimmy Key card. Next, third pitcher I recommend is Dave Roberts. Notice the profile. Home run suppression, control, got stuff over 50 or 60, and I ignore pitcher BABIP. If you have pitcher BABIP, that's cool. It's a great bonus, but for me, it's not overly important. And numerous tournaments after tournaments after tournaments by myself and other people have proved that pitcher BABIP doesn't seem to have a significant impact in this type of tournament, modern day. Again, you can go and click on Actions, Find in Card Shop, or if you're somewhere else in the screen, just go to Market, Card Shop, type in his name, Roberts, and you will find him right there, Dave Roberts, new buy order, less than 200 perfect points. Go snap him up. Go put him as part of your starting pitching rotation. And the fifth guy in my rotation is a relatively newer card. This is a card that is based in 1913. Don't let that intimidate you. Don't let you scare that off. Don't worry about the year on the card. For this tournament, you can use any card from any era as long as it's a bronze card, which is rated 60 to 69. Look at the profile. Home run suppression, control, and then stuff. That's the shape. Not too difficult. Look for those shapes in your starting pitchers, and you will have a good shot at winning these tournaments. Again, this card here, if we go to the card shop and we type in, we'll just type in his first name, H-U-G-H. Here he is right here. And he's a little bit more pricey because he's a newer card that has come out. I would still even recommend buying it for 700 if you have the perfect points, or enter a buy order. Put in a buy order of maybe 400. And then when someone's willing to sell it for that price, it'll show up in your collection. And I think if you put in a buy order of 400, you'll get it within 24 hours, at least at the time of making this video. If you're watching this 2 weeks later, he's probably a lot cheaper than that, because as time goes on, more of them are opened up in packs, and then the price comes down. The whole supply and demand thing. So those are the 5 I would recommend. Now, remember I said you can't have the only Nolan because there's only one in the game. So then you might want to put in one of these other ones that I have in the bullpen. Some great choices are Riel Cormier. He's fairly cheap on the card shop. You can get him for 131 points. That is fairly cheap. Other ones, you can go with this guy here. He's a little more expensive because he was a prize in a tournament, but not much more expensive. He's about 500 points. And other choices. Basically, you can take any of these other guys I have in the bullpen and use them as your number 5 guy. So go with Baker, Key, Roberts, Bedient, and then one of these 5 guys here. And then look for, because you're going to have to add one more pitcher because you don't have the only Nolan. So just go and look for someone with that similar shape with a lot of home run suppression. Should be easy to find someone. There's your 11 or 12 pitchers. Next thing you want to do is put together your batters. So if you have 11 pitchers, that means you have 14 batters. If you have 12 pitchers, actually 11 pitchers, you have 15 batters. If you have 12 pitchers, you're going to have 14 batters. This is what I got going for me. Again, not going to spend too much time. I'll show you the names. I'll give you some reasoning why. And then you can go and dig them out on the card shop, or maybe you have some of these already from packs that you've opened. My two catchers, I've got Darren Dalton and I've got Chris Schneider. Now, I like to run a lot of platoons. You're going to hear that word a lot when people talk OOTP roster construction, platoons. What that means is that when you have a player that plays the same position, one of them is better against the right-handed pitchers, like Mr. Dalton, and one of them is better against the left-handed pitchers, Mr. Schneider. So do you see how it makes sense to play Dalton against the righties and Schneider against the lefties? So in your lineup here, when you're putting your catchers in, you'll see here's Chris Schneider, better against the lefties, and here's Darren Dalton against the righties. Another thing you can do in the game, if you haven't discovered it already, when you click on the first player and you want to compare it, rather than opening up that player, right-click and click on Compare Player. That's going to bring up this visual here, which is easy to tell which side of the plate they're better at. And you can see Schneider, better against the lefties, Dalton, better against the righties. Now, you're not going to be able to have a platoon at every single position because there's not enough roster space for that. But if you have 11 pitchers, that means you have 14 batters. That means you can have 7 and 7, right? That's 14. Or 7 and 6, and then a couple guys, 1 or 2 guys that can play both sides of the plate. So it does allow you a lot of flexibility to have these platoons. At first base, against the righties, I've got Wally Joyner. And then against the lefties, I've got a guy that's listed as a DH, but you'll notice he can play first base. When you open up a card, you'll see their primary position, but you'll also see their secondary positions. That means that this card I can play at first base, left field, or DH. It will not allow me to put that player in as a second baseman or any other position. So when I go to Rico Cardi and I click on which position to play, it will only give me those 3 options. Very important to know. In the base game, it pretty much lets you put any player at any position, not in Perfect Team. So again, we'll get this download coming in here before we move on. And back to our first baseman. So Wally Joyner, I showed you Wally Joyner, and Mr. Where is he? Rico Cardi, compare player. Rico, much better against the lefties. Wally, much better against the righties. Are you starting to see kind of a trend and how you can assemble your team together? For the hitters, remember how we talked about the important characteristics for the pitchers? Hitters, it really, you want kind of a mixture. You just want to see a lot of blue for as many categories as possible. If you see a player with red in 3 or more categories, probably a player to avoid. Maybe don't put that player on your team. You'll notice all the players I'm showing you have a lot of blue on one side of the plate. So if you try and put Rico Cardi against the righties, he's not going to do as well. Yes, he will not strike out as much. Yes, he will hit a few home runs, but he's not really, you're not maximizing your output for your first baseman. Whereas if you put Wally Joyner in against the righties, he's got the higher BABIP, balls in play. He's going to not strike out as much. He's going to get some doubles and triples, and he's going to walk a fair bit as well. Second base, I've got Jay Bell. Quiz time. Who's he going to play against? If you said against the lefties lap, You would be right. Look at that. He's much better against the lefties. So I've got Jay Bell down here against the lefties, and against the righties, I've got Johnny Evers. Now you look at this and you go, wait a minute, Lap. Johnny's better against the lefties, right? You see his numbers are slightly better, but it's close enough, right? If I have to choose where I'm putting Johnny and Jay, it's much more obvious that Jay goes against the lefties, which then by default, Johnny's going to go against the righties. Now, what I like for my second baseman is can turn the double play. They got to have a strong ability to turn the double play and have a lot of infield range. Think about it in real life. If you're playing second base, range gives you the flexibility to move to your left or right, and turning a double play gives you the ability to successfully, catch the ball, throw the ball, step on the bag, throw it back over to first place. You want those characteristics in a second baseman. So high range, high turn double play, plus he's got a lot of speed. So here's a guy I can put in the number 1 slot in my order, or maybe in the number 9 slot to try and get on base for the top of the order. So again, second base, Jay Bell, and here's Johnny Evers in the number 9 slot. And again, I haven't gone to the card shop for each of these, but you'll find if you go to the card shop, most of these are going to be fairly easy to get, between 100 and 500 perfect points. Some of them a little bit more expensive because of their rarity, but 90% of these you should be able to get fairly cheaply. If you copy this exact lineup, except for the only Nolan, and maybe except for the catcher, who's a limited edition card and is going to cost you lots right now, I'll give you another option that you don't have to buy this card here. But if you follow, 24 of the 26 players that I'm showing you, you should be able to exactly copy this team for about 5,000 perfect points. You should be able to get it, minus Dalton and minus the only Nolan. So Darren Dalton, I've got going up against the righties. Instead of Darren, what I recommend is you go to the card shop, and if you don't have one already, look up Joe Mauer. He's a 66 overall bronze. Remember, Darren was better against the righties. Look how good Joe is against the righties. He's got good defense, and he's got a good bat. So don't pay $60,000 for Darren Dalton. Go and pay $95,000 for Joe Mauer. So your lineup will be catching Schneider against the lefties and Joe Mauer against the righties. Much cheaper. And probably not a heck of a lot of difference. In your catcher, what you want to look for is catcher framing. That's the most important defensive characteristic. So if you can find a good bat and catcher framing, like this guy does, Chris Schneider, and Joe Mauer does as well. All right, so let's go on to third base. Right now at third base, I've got Toronto Blue Jay, Kelly Gruber. Where would I put him? Better against the lefties, but you could also use him against the righties. Like, he's still strong enough that you don't need a platoon situation for Kelly Gruber. So you could save a slot for another card and put Kelly at third base on both sides. I do have them mixed up. I've got Kelly going against the lefties. For third baseman, you want a strong infield arm as the main defensive characteristic. So I'd say anything over 75. And on the right side of the plate, I'm using Connie Day at third base. Connie Day's a great card because he can play catcher, first, second, third, shortstop. Got a lot of versatility. He also has good infield range and a good arm. So again, makes a really good option for third base. Remember I said avoid cards that have 3 or more orange or red categories? He only has 2, but the other ones are really good. So Connie Day, really good option. And you're not going to pay a lot for Connie Day, 121 points currently. Next up at shortstop, this is the one position where I have the same card. So I don't have to platoon, because you can't platoon at every position when you have 11 or 12 pitchers. So here is my everyday shortstop, Connie Day. He's really good against the lefties, but he's also decent against the righties. Shortstop, you want range, range, range. That is the most important characteristic. And he's got over 100 range. If you can find a shortstop over 100 range with a good bat, go for it. There are a few other options as well. Some use Didi Gregorius. Some will use Ozzie Smith. He's a really good shortstop. But I like Tommy Butts because, again, he can play 3 different positions. So I can fill him in at third, I can fill him at second, or I can fill him in at short. And he's got the defense to play well at all 3 positions. You go to the card shop, he currently is going for 124. Like I said, you can build this entire team minus those 2 cards for under 5,000 perfect points, probably for under 4,000 perfect points, which is not a lot. Let's move to the outfield. In left field, I've got Joe Charbonneau. He is against the left-handed pitchers. This will be probably a little bit of a pricey card if you can find one. Yeah, so this one you might pay $15,000. So the only Nolan you're not going to get. Dalton's going to be over $50K, and this card, might be about $15,000. But again, there's a lot of options for outfielders, so you're not missing out too much if you don't have a Joe Charbonneau. So I've got him going against the lefties, and against the righties, I've got a guy named Mike Young. Remember how I said in this era of baseball, home runs are important? He's one of the best power guys in bronze. So again, I think he is a must add to your team. You can get him on the card shop for less than 200 perfect points. Mike Young. So instead of Joe Charbonneau, you can use Mike Young on both sides of the plate because he's not much different. He's going to strike out a little bit more against the righties. He's going to walk a little less against the lefties, but he's going to hit home runs. So don't get yourself a Joe Charbonneau, pretty expensive. Get yourself a Mike Young and put him here against the lefties and against the righties. In center field, I got probably the best defensive bronze center fielder in Gutierrez. Look at this outfield rating, 110 range, which is the most important characteristic. He's not going to make many errors. So the higher these numbers are, the less likely that they're going to have issues. Franklin Gutierrez against the lefties. You can also use him against the righties if you want to save a platoon situation. But against the righties in center field, I like Josh Hamilton. Look how good he is against the righties. Once again, you can right-click, compare players. Franklin against the lefties, Hamilton against the righties. Remember how I said avoid playing players with 3 or more red areas or orange areas? Don't play Josh Hamilton against your lefties. It's kind of a wasted position. He might get a few walks. He's going to get the bat on the ball, but it's going to be a lot of ground outs. It's going to be a lot of strikeouts. It's going to be a lot of flyouts. It's not going to be a lot of Josh Hamilton getting on base. Do not use him against the left-handed pitchers. So again, you can go Gutierrez against the lefties, Hamilton against the righties. The only downfall with using Hamilton against the righties is the defense is not as great for center field. So that's why a lot of managers will use Gutierrez on both sides. And then what they might do is instead of using Mike Young against the righties, they might use Josh Hamilton. So all you would do is you would put Gutierrez in for Young, and then Hamilton you would switch over to left field. So that's an option too. Instead of using Mike Young both ways, use him against the lefties and use Gutierrez both ways. So you have some options. Who do I want as my everyday player? Mike Young for the home run ability or Gutierrez for the center field defense? Really, it's a tough call. I am choosing to give up a little defense in center field to keep the Mike Young bat. Next up, right field. Couple options for right field. I've got Mike Young on both sides of the plate, but I've got him against the left field against the righties and right field against the lefties. If you don't have Joe Charbonneau, you're probably going to put Mike Young against the in left field. And against the righties, I got Dave Parker. Dave Parker is the best right fielder batting wise that you can have on your team. Got the power. He's got a void K. He's got the BABIP. He's got the I. You want to play him on both sides of the plate? Not really, because there's better options like a Mike Young, but you do want to play him against the righties. So I've got Mike Young here, I've got Dave Parker in the number 2 slot against the right-handed pitchers. And at DH, I've got this guy, Edgar Martinez, better against the lefties. He can also play first base and third base if I wanted him to. And against the righties, I've got one of my pitchers. Remember I showed you my pitchers? This guy in long relief, who, if you open him up on the card, is a pitcher. However, he's a two-way player. And when you click on ratings, here's his pitching ratings. Remember, home run suppression control stuff. He fits the mold. But look at his bat. Look at that. Look at that power. 88, the I 73, the BABIP 98. And he's even better in some areas against the lefties. So Ray Caldwell can play left field, center field, and right field. Now, do not play him in center field. He's awful. He's going to create a lot of problems for you in center field. Balls are going to go over his head. He's going to have throwing errors. He's going to drop ball. Like he's a bad center fielder. But you can use him at left or right. And I currently have him against the right-handed pitchers as my DH because I don't like his defense that much. You could also put him against the lefties if you want. If you don't have Joe Charbonneau, the easy change is just take Ray Caldwell and put him right there, just like that. And he will help you out because if you look at his ratings against the lefties, he's not going to hit as many home runs, but he's going to hit doubles, triples. So he's not exactly Joe Charbonneau if I compare their profiles. You lose out on the bottom end, but you gain a lot on the top. So again, don't pay up for the Charbonneau. Just put Ray Caldwell there or one of the other, batters that you have. So again, when your lineup is done, I always recommend to new people, what you want to see once you put in all your players, all of these guys should be green. That's the optimal lineup. Because what that means is that every player here is starting on one side of the plate. You don't have a wasted player just sitting on the bench doing nothing. Find players where at least they can start on one side of the plate. So if I took out, if I put in, Ray Caldwell here, Joe Charbonneau turns white, which means he's not anywhere in the lineups. So he's kind of a wasted player. He's going to get some, pinch hit opportunities. He's going to come relieve some players when they're rested. But why not get a lineup where everyone has a certain role? That's what this will allow you to do. So there you go. That is one tournament that you should get involved in. It's the bronze best of 3, no combinators. The other one that you should enter, because remember, you can enter 4 at any one time. And you can even enter 4 of the same tournament. Like you can go into this bronze that I showed you right here with no combinators. Where is it? Right there. And you could enter 2 of those at any one time. Doesn't have to be different tournaments. It can be the same tournament. So as soon as you enter one, wait for the next one to start up and then just enter it again. And you can put in your same lineup and rock and roll. The other one I recommend that you enter, and this time it's a daily. So if you go to the bronze and you go to the dailies, there's 2 of them here. This is a cap tournament. Maybe avoid those. They're a little trickier. But if you have the ability, every day, enter the daily early bronze because you're not allowed to use any combinators. And because of that, you can use the exact same lineup that you have built for that other one I just showed you. Exact same lineup. And go in, enter, make sure you put in that lineup that you built in the roster builder, and you're good to go. This one fires off, probably around 6 a.m. Eastern, and it fills up within a couple hours. But it does offer you that tournament batch 1 to 4 card, which can be pretty valuable. So as a new player, what do I do, Lap? What do I enter? I just showed you for less than 5,000 perfect points for like 23 of the 26 players on my team. You can build a roster and be highly competitive in both of these tournaments. Let me show you, let me go and show you some results with that same roster. You can go to your tournaments, and it keeps about a week of your more recent results. Remember, I just created this team. I modified it 2 days ago. So if I go look 2 days ago, look, that daily early bronze, winner, first place. And the good thing too is that once you enter a daily tournament, after it's over or during, you can go back in for up to a week afterwards, and you can go, check it out. See, I won the choice pack here. Show you my team. There's the same team that we just showed you. Exact same. Here's my hitters. Everyone's green. Here's the exact same lineup I showed you. So 63 other teams, and I managed to come first, which got me that high diamond choice pack, which was worth about 70,000 perfect points that I was able to sell it for. 70,000. You've invested 5,000 into this team, and all it takes is 1 8th place finish, and you've made that back. All it takes is 2 mini tournament wins where you get 4 packs each, and you've paid this team off. It's not going to take much for you to recoup, and then it's just going to snowball, and you're going to keep getting more and more and more success. Now, as new cards come out, you may need to update the rosters a little bit, but if you tune into myself or other streamers, I'm kind of one of the only ones that focus on bronze. So to get the bronze advice, I'm one of the ones that can probably give you the best advice, but there are many other streamers that play other tournaments that are awesome at the tournaments that they play. And just keep entering those dailies with this team or similar to this team. And like I said, you will have success. And the second tournament I highly recommend as a new player that you get involved with are tournaments that only require live cards to play. As you're opening packs, you'll notice a lot of the cards you get are real life images, kind of on a standard background, a blue background. Those are called live cards, real life baseball players from the 2024 season. There are specific tournaments. If you go to your traditional tournaments and go to live cards only, it'll show you the tournaments where you can't play those historical cards, only the live ones. And they're really easy to enter. And again, you can have some success and start to build up your packs and your perfect points because you don't have combinators and you don't have to have these 100,000 perfect point cards to participate in. All of these are going to be really cheap. Really cheap. You can build a roster for probably 500 perfect points. I'm not kidding. 500 for a bronze roster. So let me show you what you should be doing. You should be going and looking for the bronzes. So here's one here. Here's a bronze live. Again, if I go to bronze or lower, and you look for the ones that say live on it, live, live, live. There's a daily live, which you should get involved in. And then there's a couple quick tournaments that you can play that fire off really quickly with 32 teams. And you can win 6 packs by playing in it. So those are the 2 bronze live tournaments. One is a quick, right there, 32 teams, and one is a daily. And again, just to show you, let me go and take a look at my tournaments. I don't play a lot of live because I prefer the historical from the first set that I showed you. But let me go look at some live results here. There we go. So this one here, this my most recent one on Christmas Day. I finished first out of 32 teams. Now, again, you're not going to finish first every time. There's a lot of randomness involved. But if you can finish in the top 4, one every 6, 7 tournaments, that's a win. Because 6 packs for first, 3 packs for second, and I think 1 pack for third and fourth. No, 2 packs for third and fourth, as it shows right there. So similar kind of idea, but you'll notice now when I go here to my pictures, all of these are the live cards. You can only use live cards. I'm not going to go through one by one because, you need to test out your ability to put teams together. But you can see I'll go through my 5 starters. Jordan Hicks. Again, home run suppression. These players aren't going to be not as much blue as the historical cards. Live cards generally are weaker cards, but at least everyone is in the same position. They can only use the live cards. Kyle Gibson, more of a flat profile, which means kind of not really bad at anything, but not super good at anything. Live cards are good, are okay with those flat profiles. Michael Lorenzen. You've got JT Brubaker. And you've got Garrett Whitlock. Now notice that the ones I'm showing you, not a lot of them have the high home run suppression. It's tough to find good starters with really high home run suppression as live cards. So don't feel you're out of place if you have pitchers with lower home run suppression. That's more for the historical cards where you want to really look for those. For my live bullpen, I've got everyone at middle relief again. I've got one of my better guys as a closer. Look how he finished the tournament, 9 saves. So he did fairly well. Again, this was a tournament that I had success, finishing first. So again, if you even just copy this exact same lineup, and again, on the card shop, these players should be pretty easy to find. 33 points. Matt Brash, 35 points. So I wasn't kidding when I said you could probably build a team for about 500 perfect points. 29 points. Hernandez, 34 points. So maybe my pitchers are going to cost me 400 points. If they average about 34, yeah, maybe about 400 points for my pitchers. And then the same for the hitters. So maybe a little bit more, less than 1,000 anyway. Now for the batters, same thing. You can go and look for platoon situations or avoid platoons and just put both sides of the plate for the guy. Nicky Lopez, one of the great defensive players. Notice he's not a great batter, but you're going to have that with live cards. You're going to sacrifice hitting for defense, and he can play really good shortstop defense. So as you're building your team, a good thing to go to is to go to the actual card shop, and you only want bronze, so put 69 and 60. That way it filters out only the bronze cards. For type, you want only live. And maybe even filter it down to just the pictures. And then you can sort it by, okay, show me all the pitchers with the best control versus righties. Again, you want only the live cards. So you've got maybe 50 or 60 pitchers, and you've got to pick 11 or 12 of them. So if you sort by control, then you can click on each one and go, okay, he's not bad, or click on this guy, not bad. I like to sort by the movement because it won't allow you. It's a flaw of the game, something they're missing. It'd be nice if you could sort by home run suppression or by pitcher BABIP. You can't. So you can only sort by movement. And then you can click on them and see what their strength is. So again, live tournaments are free. They're cheap to enter. Here's my pitchers once again. Here are my hitters. So you can screenshot it or put it on pause and write some of these names down. And then I've just left my lineup a blank right now. You know, you can go in and you can kind of sort. If it was me, I would be putting my best BABIP guys, BABIP gap guys with speed. So let's look for speed, BABIP gap. You know, maybe a guy like Spencer, not the greatest, but you put him in there in the top of the lineup. Not very good. So I want speed, BABIP, and gap. Maybe this guy, maybe JD goes in towards the top. My number kind of 3, 4, and 5 guy, I kind of want power. So maybe like an Adele, Martinez, and Jake Rogers. At the bottom of the order, again, another speed guy. Maybe he's not great with BABIP, but he's got speed. Yeah, maybe like a guy like Nicky Lopez as my number 9. And then just go and fill your lineups. See who's better against the lefties, who's better against the righties. And again, you can create your own custom view like I have here. If you click on view, customize, go to batting ratings, pick all the categories you want to see. These are what I show. Click OK, because I like to see some of the stats as well. So to get those stats, you would go customize, click all these batting ratings to show, and then click on batting stats and the batting stats that you want to see. So that just puts everything on one screen, so I don't have to flip back and forth between stats and between ratings. I can keep it all on one screen. Same with pictures. You can go to your pictures and you can go to customize. You can pick the ratings that you want. I like to have versus left and versus right. And then you can also go to pitching stats and pick the stats that you want. Again, just keeps everything nice on this one screen. All right, so there you go. I hope it's been helpful. Again, if you have any other questions, leave them in the chat. If you're new to OOTP, welcome. And don't forget, pop into my Twitch stream sometimes. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday at around 1 p.m. Eastern is when I start streaming. And feel free to pop in and say, hi, Lap. I found you from your YouTube videos. And I'll say, hey, where are you from? Nice to meet you. Welcome to the community. We'll give you kind of a welcome wagon celebration, as I like to do on my stream. Welcome to the dog pound. And please leave a like, share this out. And if you have any other concerns or questions, like I said, leave it in the comments. I do look at all the comments for every video and would be glad to give you any other advice. Thanks for tuning in. As a famous Canadian rock band said, we're here for a good time, not a long time. So have a good time. The sun can't shine every day. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. We'll see you next episode.
A very good friend of mine told me something the other day. I'd like to pass it on to you. I believe what he said to be true. He said we're here for a good time, not a long time. So have a good time. The sun can't shine every day, and the sun is shining in this rainy city, and the sun is shining